Martin stood at the plaza entrance every morning at 5:30 a.m., his uniform pressed, his posture straight. At 67, he never complained. When his boss fired him for being old and slow, he simply nodded and walked out. But 48 hours later, the military convoy parked outside that plaza would make his boss realize he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Martin Lewis Johnson was 67 years old, a retired United States Army soldier living in Detroit, Michigan, and until now, or until today, he was the security guard at Riverside Business Plaza. Martin was a typical American veteran, humble, disciplined, and someone who always did his job completely. Every morning at 5:30 a.m. before sunrise, Martin would leave his apartment and walk to the plaza building. It was a 15-minute walk, but Martin always arrived 15 minutes early, because being late is not in the American soldier's vocabulary, he would tell himself. Martin's uniform was always spotless. Navy blue security guard uniform, pressed pants, shiny shoes. At 67, his posture was still that of a soldier. Shoulders straight, head up, rhythmic steps. People who first saw him would sense that this man was more than just a security guard, but no one would ask. Riverside Business Plaza was a 20-story modern building in Detroit's business district. It housed law firms, accounting companies, consultancy firms. It was typically a place where white-collar, middle-aged, and older people worked. Martin had been working here for 15 years and knew everyone. But things had changed recently. The plaza's new manager, 34-year-old Brad Patterson, had modern business approaches, was aggressive, and saw older employees like Martin as inefficient. Brad had started working 6 months ago, and since then claimed he was doing modernization at the plaza. In reality, he was replacing older employees with younger and cheaper workers. Martin was the last target of this change. That Monday morning, Martin had taken his position at the plaza entrance at 5:45 a.m. as usual. The morning shift started at 6 a.m., but Martin always came 15 minutes early. This was his discipline. At 9:30 a.m., Brad Patterson came out of his office and walked toward Martin's desk. He was accompanied by 2 other men, one HR representative, the other a representative from the new security company. "Martin," Brad said, with no courtesy in his voice, "could you come to my office?" Martin stood up. "Of course, Mr. Patterson." Brad's office was on the 15th floor, overlooking the city. Modern, cold, impersonal office. Brad sat behind his desk and seated Martin in the chair across from him. "Martin," Brad began, looking at the papers in his hand, "I called you here to talk with management. You know, the business world is changing. We have to change too." Martin listened, guessing what he was going to say. "You're a good employee," Brad continued, but his voice wasn't sincere at all. "But now we need young people, more energetic, technology-compatible, people who can use modern security systems." Martin's expression didn't change. He just continued listening. "So," Brad said, "we're terminating our contract with you. This will be your last week." The HR representative intervened. "Of course, in accordance with the law. 1 week's notice, and your severance package is ready." Martin slowly nodded. "I understand." "I hope you don't take it personally," Brad said, but he wasn't sincere at all. "This is just business." Martin stood up. "I understand, Mr. Patterson. Thank you." And he left. That was it. No argument, no complaints, no anger. Just "I understand," and he left. Brad laughed after Martin left. "These old men are so easy. They don't even resist." The HR representative was uncomfortable. Brad, Martin has been here for 15 years. He's a good employee. Maybe ... Maybe nothing, Brad said sharply. Business decision. Old man, slow, inefficient. The new security company will provide a younger, more technological guy. But Brad didn't know who Martin Lewis Johnson really was. When Martin went downstairs, several employees came to talk to him. They liked Martin. Every morning he would politely say, "Good morning," open doors for them, help when they had problems. "Martin," said receptionist Linda, "what happened upstairs?" "I was fired," Martin said calmly. "This is my last week." "What?" Linda was shocked. "Why? You're one of the best employees." "He wants young workers," Martin said. "I understand. Times are changing." "This isn't fair," said another employee. "Is this how they thank you after 15 years?" Martin smiled. "Life is like this. I'm okay. Don't worry." Throughout that week, Martin did his job as always. He never complained, never was late, never neglected his duty. As if nothing had happened. Friday was his last day. Martin packed his things. There wasn't much. A photo, a coffee mug, a few personal items. Even on Martin's last day, Brad Patterson didn't come to thank him. Friday was his last day. Martin packed his things. There wasn't much. A photo, a coffee mug, a few personal items. Even on Martin's last day, Brad Patterson didn't come to thank him. Only the HR representative came, gave him the paperwork, and said, "Good luck." As Martin was leaving the building, several employees saw him off. Linda was crying. "Martin, they wronged you," she said. "No," Martin said gently. "Just business." "It's nothing." Only the HR representative came, gave him the paperwork, and said, "Good luck." As Martin was leaving the building, several employees saw him off. Linda was crying. "Martin, they wronged you," she said. "No," Martin said gently. "Just business." "It's nothing." When Martin got home, his wife Ruth was waiting for him. Ruth was Martin's wife of 45 years. She also knew Martin's story. "How did it go?" Ruth asked. "It went well," Martin said. "People were very kind." Ruth knew that Martin always tried to be positive, but she also knew he was sad inside. "Don't worry," Ruth said. "We'll find something new." Martin smiled. "Of course we will." But Martin didn't know that one of the Plaza employees, David Miller, had shared Martin's firing story on social media. David, 28 years old, did IT support at the Plaza. He really liked Martin because Martin always helped him with computer problems, waited patiently. David had written on Facebook, "Today our 67-year-old security guard, Martin Johnson, who worked faithfully for 15 years, was fired. Reason, old and slow. This man comes early every day, is kind and respectful. Is it fair to thank him like this after 15 years? Not fair. Riverside Plaza, veteran respect." The post began to be shared in local Detroit social media groups. People were commenting about the disrespect shown to older workers. But among the people who saw the post was someone special. Colonel Robert "Tank" Williams, stationed at Fort Bragg, was born in Detroit and still followed local social media. When he saw David's post, when he heard the name Martin Johnson, his heart raced. Could this be that Martin Johnson? Colonel Williams immediately made several phone calls. He researched old military records. He looked at veteran databases, and he found him. Martin Lewis Johnson, 1st Cavalry Division, Vietnam War veteran, Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Silver Star, and most importantly, Medal of Honor recipient. Colonel Williams held his breath. He knew this man, not just from records, but from legends. 1969 Vietnam. Martin Johnson, then a 22-year-old young soldier, the day his unit was under enemy fire, had single-handedly rescued 8 wounded comrades. He had faced enemy fire, been wounded 3 times, but never left anyone behind. That day he had saved 8 lives, and in doing so, he had almost died. The Medal of Honor was America's highest military award, and Martin Johnson had earned it. Colonel Williams immediately took action. First, he called veteran organizations in Detroit, then local media, then his friends at Fort Bragg. Martin Johnson has been found, he said on the phones, and he has been disrespected. Monday morning, Brad Patterson came to the plaza as usual. The agenda was the new security guard starting. Young, modern, tech-savvy. But as he approached the building, he saw something very strange. There was a crowd in front of the plaza. People were carrying posters saying, "Justice for Martin, respect our veterans, 15 years of service matters." "What's happening here?" Brad asked receptionist Linda. "Protest for Martin," Linda said coldly. "People are upset about his firing." Brad shrugged. "Nonsense. A security guard. What's so exaggerated about this?" But at that moment, 3 black SUVs pulled up in front of the plaza. When Brad saw the men getting out of the cars, his mouth dropped open. Uniformed soldiers, high-ranking officers, and at the front, a colonel with his chest full of medals. Colonel Williams entered the plaza accompanied by 6 officers. Everyone's eyes were on them. "I'm looking for Brad Patterson," Colonel Williams said in an authoritative voice. Brad stepped forward, his heart pounding. I'm Brad Patterson." Colonel Williams approached him. "I'm Colonel Williams, and you fired Martin Johnson." Yes. It was a business decision?" "Business decision?" Colonel Williams said, his voice rising. "You fired a Medal of Honor recipient." Everyone in the plaza's jaw dropped. "Medal of Honor? Martin." Colonel Williams continued. "Martin Johnson saved 8 soldiers in Vietnam in 1969. Under enemy fire, wounded 3 times, he never left anyone behind. He is a hero." Brad Patterson was frozen. I didn't know." "You didn't need to know," Colonel Williams said. "You should have shown respect to a veteran, to a man who served faithfully for 15 years. At that moment, another car came from outside the plaza. Martin Johnson got out of the car. Ruth was beside him. Martin was wearing a uniform. But this time, it was military dress blues. His medals on his chest, rank insignia on his sleeves. The Medal of Honor medal was shining on his chest. Silence fell over the plaza. Everyone was looking at Martin. Was this the humble security guard they knew? Martin approached Colonel Williams and gave a military salute. "Colonel Williams, sir." "Martin," Colonel Williams said proudly, "your presence is an honor." Martin looked at Brad Patterson. Brad had bowed his head in shame. "Mr. Patterson," Martin said in his calm voice, "I'm not angry with you, but I want to teach you something." "What?" Brad asked, his voice barely audible. "Never judge anyone by their appearance. I wasn't just an old security guard. I was a veteran. But more importantly, I was a loyal employee." Colonel Williams intervened. "And Martin, if you want, we can arrange a much better position for you at Veterans Affairs." Martin smiled. "Thank you, Colonel, but I'm ready to retire." Then he turned to Brad. "But I have a suggestion for you, Mr. Patterson. From now on, show a little more respect to your employees, because each of them has a story." That day, Brad Patterson apologized, not just to Martin, but to all Plaza employees. He offered Martin his job back, but Martin politely declined. "The time has come," he said, "but this lesson was valuable for everyone." Local news covered Martin's story, with the headline, "Hidden Hero Among Us." Martin gave a brief interview. I just did my duty. In Vietnam and here, a soldier always does his duty. Plaza employees organized a farewell party for Martin. This time, Brad Patterson also came and personally gave Martin a plaque. Best Employee, 15 years of faithful service. Martin smiled as he looked at his plaque. Thank you, but the greatest reward was working with you. A few months later, Martin and Ruth moved to Florida. A small house, ocean view, peaceful. Martin started gardening. But occasionally, emails would come from former Plaza employees. Martin, we miss you. The new security guard is nothing like you. Martin's story became a legend in Detroit. Something called the Martin Johnson effect even emerged, showing respect to older employees, honoring veterans. Brad Patterson changed, really changed. Now he was trying to learn each employee's story, giving more value to older employees. And in the Plaza's lobby, a small memorial corner was set up in Martin's honor. There was Martin's photo, a copy of his Medal of Honor, and this inscription: to honor all our veteran employees. Real heroes don't always wear uniforms. Other companies that heard Martin's story also started veteran hiring programs because they understood that age is just a number. Experience, loyalty, and character are priceless. During the 15 years Martin Johnson worked as a security guard, he never told anyone who he was, because to him, the past was the past. What mattered was what kind of person he was today. But sometimes the past comes to remind the present, and then the whole world understands the true value of people like Martin Johnson. Because real heroism doesn't just happen on the battlefield. Sometimes it's also in coming early every morning for 15 years and doing your job faithfully. And Martin Johnson had proven he was a hero in both areas. In his new home in Florida, Martin wakes up every morning at 5:30 a.m. and tends to his garden. Old habits don't die easily, but now he was happy because he had learned that real respect comes with time. And Martin Johnson, in his 67 years of life, had more than earned that respect.